Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with more hip hop news and another hip hop topic that I felt it was time to address. So, Soldier Boy being a part of the culture has been a meme, it has been a joke, it has been, he's been discredited for a long time. But people don't realize how essential he is to hip hop and what contributions he made to hip hop. So, just for a little background, Soldier Boy entered the game with the dance song "Crank That Soldier Boy." That was a dance crave song that ruled the nation back in this time, and a lot of the experts or the hip hop heads or the hip hop aficionados and of those of the sort kind of were basically were discrediting his song and what he meant to hip hop because we didn't see the vision at the time. Because a lot of time, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, a lot of time these artists don't necessarily, the way they start is not how they finish their careers and how they evolved. Even the most purest of hip hop forms, you take your Nas's, you take your Jay-Z's, you take your 50 Cents, they initially start off one way, but they end up maturing or evolving to a different sound, and Ti is one of the biggest artists to do that. He started off with a lot of trap music. Now it's more, socially conscious raps, and just even commentary is just more is different because you get a family, you fall in love, you get a wife, everything starts to change, right? So you can't really talk about or broach the same subjects that you have before. So it becomes something way different if you actually are evolving as an artist. And that's what Soulja Boy did as an artist. But he's more important to hip hop than you know. He was more than just a dance crave song. He was a trendsetter. And a lot of people make jokes about it because he always says, I'm the first person to do this. But in actuality, a lot of this stuff he's talking about, there's some merit and some truth to it. So let me count the ways. Um, when he came out with Crank That Soldier Boy, a lot of people were making fun of dance songs and thinking it wasn't real hip hop, and people were frowning upon it, right? But then you started coming out, or the radio was filled of dance songs. And this was probably, my high school years. This is probably '04, '05, '03, around that time period, where you had songs like The Stanky Leg, Lean With It, Rock With It, Snap Your Fingers. And it was a whole snap movement that built off after Crank That Soldier Boy came out. Everybody had a dance song pretty much, except for, the more established hip hop artists, but new artists that came out, whether it be with Jermaine Dupri or it be with Little John, all these artists had the snap music or they had some kind of dance that went along with the raps. And we really didn't care about the raps that much. It was the new dance moves. And it's a part of hip hop to have, trends and to have dancing, it's part of that break dancing era that really is not broached or embraced a lot as that part of the element of hip hop, but that became an element of hip hop back in the early 2000s or mid 2000 period of people coming out with these dance crave songs and all of these different different versions of dances. Whether even you want to think about the Young Jock, um, the motorcycle dance he had for "It's Going Down." So all of this started, and it was based in Atlanta as well. A lot of people that came out with dances were in Atlanta. Probably 90% or more came out of that Atlanta tree, similar to Soldier Boy. But it became very hypocritical because people criticized him for it, and then a lot of people made money and made um, tons of revenue off of it, and got tons of eyeballs on their videos and things because of this dance crave that hip hop made. That Soldier Boy started specifically. But talked about how you don't necessarily start how you finish when you think about the careers of like a Doja Cat who came out with the Moo song that was very gimmicky, but now she's considered a serious artist. Whether you want to consider her pop or hip hop, she's become more of a serious artist, and it wasn't going to be about that. She did something to get the attention on her and then show her true artistry. Similar to even on a lower scale, probably Lupe Fiasco, who came out with the Kick Push song, but he eventually transitioned into a more conscious hip hop, more things geared towards societal issues. So just because you start that way don't mean you have to finish that way. So when you critique artists that first start off, it's a little bit different when they mature. Uh, just thinking about Lil Nas X now, he was one of those artists with the same kind of deal. He started off with the cowboy horse, song, and he eventually turned into more pop artist, a more serious pop artist, and it was less gimmicky. Even though some may consider it still gimmicky, but he evolved from the sound that he originally had. But just getting back on Soldier Boy a little bit, uh, he was never the most lyrical, but he started off with more elementary type raps, but he evolved into a more sophisticated sound. Not saying his sound was sophisticated, but it became more sophisticated. And then people don't realize the hits that he had in his discography. He has a lot of hits compared to, a lot of people don't have, your greatest artists don't have number ones, but he has hits, especially on that second album, that Soldier Boy Tell 'Em album, which I believe is better than his first one because his first one, he was a lot younger. But songs like Turn My Swag On, that song was played a lot in my college years. And what this was about 2008, doing a lot of the probates and a lot of the school events where they were playing that song, Kiss Me Through the Phone, Gucci Bandana, which has Gucci Man on it, Shopping Spree. He just had a lot of hits, and he's not credited a lot for it because of the way he started in the game. But though his evolution is not talked about enough of how he transitioned the sound, and his audience became older, so he couldn't do the dance stuff anymore. And he only did one song, but you would have thought his whole career was just about dancing. And he was one of the first artists that no one talks about, first artist to use the internet to his advantage. He posted his songs under the name 50 Cent. So if you try to download, you thought you was downloading a 50 Cent song, you would get a Soldier Boy song. And this is how he was discovered a lot, because he would do these tactics like this. And he created a way for artists, for the podcasters now, like your Casanats and the Aiden Rosses and any podcast you want to think about, because he used the internet to his advantage. The internet was just used for research purposes and things like that back then. It wasn't used to market it really as much, or to advertise, or even to broadcast as much. So he was one of the first artists to do so. But of course, like I said, the way he started, they didn't give him the credit for it. And usually the first person doesn't get credit. Usually it's like somebody who took it to the next level gets that credibility, opposed to the person who actually invented it or set the trend for it. So that makes sense in that regards. But this is what this podcast is about, to give those flowers to those people who actually paved the way for those guys who made it to the level that they made it to, because they didn't just get the idea out of nowhere. They started off in an idea. But being criticized for a ringtone rapper and being for the dance rapper, that was just a part of the formula for his success. And people didn't criticize other ringtone artists like they did him, but he got the brunt of it. T-Pain made a lot of money off that Buy You a Drink back in '06 and '05, but nobody really said that because he had other songs and he was a lot older. I believe Soldier Boy's youth at the time kind of contributed to the lack of respect that he got in the game. So just something to think about. But as always, until next time, I'll see you next time.